Okay, tips for a successful progressive discipline process. Again, is make sure that you have meetings with your employees in private. This shouldn't be a conversation that's out on the floor or in an area where people could overhear what's going on. This should be a meeting with the supervisor or the manager where they're taking them either into a conference room or into that manager or supervisor's office, and they're having this conversation in private. And again, how your managers and employees are going to stage that first conversation is going to have an impact over that whole process. So in a caring mode, it's going to be much more positively received than in a confrontation, upset, or mad mode. Again, your managers and supervisors should maintain a calm, professional demeanor, yet be firm and speak to your employees with respect. So what I would say is, as managers and supervisors, they need to communicate the message, and then they just need to listen. You know, so sometimes an employee may have something to say. Sometimes they validate, yes, I understand that I've been late. I want to turn this around. Here's what I need to do. And they own up to the situation, and they want to let you know that they are committed to returning their performance up to acceptable. Sometimes, as we all know, we have employees that don't own up to anything, and they have a bunch of excuses. And I think you listen to that, and then you just say, you know, I can only comment on what I observe. Either in the process you're not getting it, or you're not producing enough files, or you know, you have been late. Do we agree with that? So it doesn't matter the reasons. We're just talking about the outcomes. Yes, you have been late. So again, you know, it's not like we're going to, if somebody's been late and they have, you know, a situation that we all understand. We've all had that alarm clock not go off on time once or twice, and we've all had situations where we got behind a bus, or there's been traffic and we just, you know, something was unforeseen. So it's not that we lack compassion, but again, this isn't in the case of tardiness that they're tardy once and we're on them. Our policy may say if you're tardy 3 times within such and such time, or within 3 to 5 times. So we want to let them know that it's the pattern that we've seen. Okay. The other thing is, don't let your supervisors or managers, when they're talking to an employee during this discussion, give the impression to the supervisor, well, I don't agree taking you down this path, but management or human resources is making me do that. Because that's exactly the wrong impression you want to give to that employee. So, you know, as part of the process, you may need to coach your managers and supervisors about how to do this, and we'll get into that in just a little bit. Okay, why managers and supervisors resist progressive discipline, or even that whole discipline box in general, is sometimes they think, although incorrectly, that if they ignore the problem, it will go away. And I think we all know that they don't go away, they just get worse. So we need to reinforce the fact with our supervisors and managers that if we see a problem brewing, we need to take care of it sooner than later. Sometimes our managers and supervisors say, well, it takes too much time, and I don't have time to get into that verbal warning, and then if it goes to a written warning and a second written warning and then termination, I just don't have time. And my response to that is, well, it does take time. But it also takes time to recruit and hire people. So, you know, you can either give me your time on the front end or the back end. And if this is a good employee, they've just got some things that need to be corrected, we need to coach our managers and supervisors that we do need to take the time to go through this process. The third reason managers and supervisors may resist the process is they feel uncomfortable in having these kinds of discussions, so they may need a partner. And it's true. Just like those of us that are parents may resist disciplining our children because, you know, we love our children and we don't want to seem harsh on them, we know there are certain circumstances where if our children need some corrective action, we're going to give it to them because we care about them. Well, the same for our employees. Most people are not comfortable talking to employees, to their peers, in terms of adult peers, about performance improvement. So you as the human resources may need to offer some guidance to your managers and supervisors in terms of how to handle the situation, and be a resource through the process. You may need to do some role playing, especially with some of your new supervisors. So if it's, the first time that one of your new supervisors has had a situation where they are doing a verbal coaching meeting, then maybe role play with them. So help them to feel more comfortable, give them words, give them language that they can use, help them to help the employee get through this process. Okay, your role as HR. You need to be a resource to discuss the employee performance process before it starts. So again, you may want to go back to your offices, and if you don't already have a progressive discipline process in place, you may want to create one. And just give your supervisors and managers a tool to help them deal with employee problems. Again, maybe you lay out the process. If one of your managers or supervisors brings you an employee problem and you say, well, we're going to initiate a progressive discipline program right now with this employee, here's the process. It starts with the verbal warning. After a certain period of time, we may go to a written warning and then a second written warning and then termination. So lay out the process so that they will know what's to come. What I always coach, or what I used to coach my supervisors and managers to do, is to use file notes. And I would tell my supervisors to have a file folder at their desk for each of their employees. And every time they saw something very positive that the employee did, whether it be a project they worked on, whether it was a call that they got from somebody talking about how well they did on the call, I would always make a note, tell them to make a note, put it in the file. Conversely, anytime there was something that was lacking in their performance or tardiness or something, I would tell them to make a note. And that way you're just starting to tell the story, so that if you see a pattern of repeat performance issues, the story is starting to develop. So when they come to you to help to get a partner with the progressive discipline program, then you can ask them and say, well, tell me what you first noticed, when did it start, what was going on, so they can pull out their notes, and so then you can walk them through the story and help them to craft that first step on the run. You may want to help them draft the information for the employees. Help them with, writing that written warning. Help them with that verbal meeting so that they feel comfortable going to that. As they go through each step, again, you're going to want to review with them what happened. Prior to step 2, review step 1. Prior to step 3, review steps 1 and 2. Prior to the final steps, again, we want to review what's going on here. If we get to the point where there's a termination meeting, you may want to be part of that meeting. So in that situation, let me back up, in all the stages prior to the termination meeting, you may want to, not be in that room. In fact, I would probably coach you not to be in the room. It's an issue between the manager or supervisor and their employee. So it's the two of them in the conversation talking about, the verbal warning, the first written warning, the second written warning. When we get down to the final stage where it's a separation meeting, I would coach the HR to be in the room. So it's the manager or supervisor, it's HR, and it's the employee. And, again, this conversation is kind of scripted out. The manager has their piece, or the supervisor has their piece. It's pretty brief. And then that manager or supervisor leaves, and then you as HR are there with the employee to kind of go through the next steps in the separation process.